everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Michael and this episode is about designing and building a dust shoe or dust collector for my Tormach 770M CNC mill. Due to space limitations in my little workshop, I could not install the full enclosure for the machine. I built a small partial enclosure myself, but especially when working with wood and plastics, what I occasionally do, it creates a lot of dust and chips. I also already have a dust collecting system for my woodworking machines installed, and I thought I might as well use that for this purpose. There are of course a few options available on the internet for purchase, but none of them met all the criteria I had in mind, and so I decided to build one myself. The criteria important to me were, first of all, it had to work with my existing dust collecting system. It had to fit on the 3 3/8 inch spindle housing of the Tormach machine. I wanted to be height adjustable to accommodate for different tool length. I wanted the tool to remain visible. That means I had to build it out of some clear see-through material. It had to be very easy to install and to remove within seconds without tools. I wanted a tool change to still be possible when installed, and I did not want to have any obstruction or pipes and hoses laying around. So these were the basic criteria I had in mind, and this is what I came up with. This is the dust shoe which connects to the spindle housing of the Tormach mill. It's made mostly out of clear acrylic, and a second version here with a brush fence, which is more common than this one. Like I said, it's still visible, but not as good as with the clear fence. I now walk you through the separate parts I built and how it's assembled and how it fits to my machine. Okay, here is my existing dust collection system. I took it apart and just kept the essentials and mounted it in the corner underneath the ceiling to free up some floor space. The dust collector currently is connected to all my woodworking machines, and I just tapped into that circuit here with a Y connector, attached some black PVC pipe, and then underneath the ceiling run over to my CNC mill, and here it is. It's not connected to the CNC mill physically, and this is just a shut-off valve, a little slider, and here I want to connect the hose for my dust shoe. Okay, these are the parts we're going to build. First up is the clamp, which slips onto the spindle housing, which is a 3 3/8 inch diameter. It clamps on and can be height adjusted to accommodate different tool length. It's made out of 6061 aluminum, and underneath is a groove which holds on the connecting piece for the dust shoe. I milled this on the CNC mill, and the back side facing off I did on the lathe. The reason being, otherwise I would have to build a work holding piece, soft jaws to hold that. I did it on the lathe, and next time if I do that again, I would do it on the mill and create these soft jaws, because on the lathe it's easy to hold, because you can, with a 3-jaw chuck, you can hold that easily, but the clamping force is limited. You don't want to deform this cylinder, and it took longer than expected on the lathe. Then we have the dust shoe holder made of 1/4 inch thick acrylic sheet, and I milled that on my CNC mill. The reason being, my laser cutter has a blue light and does not cut through clear acrylic, so I had to CNC that, Again, on the top side of the shoe is again a groove which holds the connecting piece to the clamp. And I built a little scrap board to hold it in place when milling. So in the beginning, it's screwed down here and here. And when it's cut out, I have some double-sided tape here to hold it in place. Works actually quite well. Next up is the connecting piece between the clamp and the dust shoe. Pops in here and here. The part is made out of, again, 1/4 inch thick clear acrylic sheet. I built this little jig here. When I put it in the oven, I didn't want it to lay flat on the surface. It discolors the surface a little bit, so I built this little jig that I can heat it up without damaging the surface quality. And when it was hot, I took it, laid it around this cylinder and clamped it in place. This guy, the inside, on the inside I put some thin aluminum sheet because I didn't want to have this congregated surface pressed into the acrylic. It works actually quite well. This is actually, by chance, has exactly the diameter I needed. It's a part of a mashed potato presser. And with that done, then I put it on the lathe to cut in these pieces for the grooves of the clamp and the shoe. In order to do that, I built a little jig for the lathe. It just pops on here, and then I clamped it in place, and then I was able on the lathe to machine these parts. This was actually the most difficult part to build. The reason being, this acrylic seems to be very sensitive on temperature. If it's too hot, it distorts and creates some air bubbles. If it's too cold and you bend it around this diameter, it cracks. So that was a little bit difficult. I found 315 degrees Fahrenheit to be perfect. And also the cut length of this piece. If you do the math and you say, okay, it needs to be a certain length, it expands so much with heat that you can't wrap it around here. It's an overlap, so you can do that. So you need to cut a little bit shorter. It took me 2 attempts to get the right length, but now it turned out actually very nicely. Then we have the air fence. I made 2 versions of it. One is made out of 1.5 millimeter vinyl sheet. Just cut a piece out here, cut it to length, and then cut in these little flaps here to allow for airflow. Also, if you hit something, then it bends easily. And the second version is just a standard dust brush. And to hold them, I need to account for one thing. This is just 1.5 millimeter thick, and this airbrush here is 5 millimeters. To hold these fences in place to the dust shoe, I 3D printed this piece. This one here is for the vinyl sheet, and then a second piece with a larger gap here for the brush, just made out of PLA. And finally, the parts to connect the dust shoe to the dust collecting system. First up is a little piece of PVC pipe which pops in here. This connects to a 45-degree angle. And this is a standard vacuum hose from DeWalt, and it's expanding. That means it's a spring loading. When it sits like that and the Z-axis moves up or down, it always retracts itself. I just had to shorten it a little bit for my purposes. So this then pops in here, and this goes in here, and this goes into the PVC pipe to the dust collector. Okay, and here are the final pieces, fully assembled. This is with a clear air fence and the clamp. And this one with a brush shoe. And the clamp is missing here. If I use that, I just mount this clamp on here, or I'll build a second one, either way. And here it is mounted to the machine and hooked up to the dust collector. As I said, it can be easily height adjusted by just moving this up and down and clamp it, and can be easily removed. Just takes that and it's gone, or then it's mounted again. And also, as I said earlier, you can replace the clear fence with this guy, and then you have a brush. Okay, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to see you very soon.